The evening sky slowly deepened into rich shades of blue as a group of old friends gathered on a small country porch. A fire was already crackling in a carefully arranged stone circle, scattering dancing reflections of golden light across the freshly mowed yard. The warm summer air was thick with the fragrance of blooming lilies, honeysuckle, and the faint scent of pine carried from the nearby woods. Anna, the hostess, a petite woman with lively brown eyes and a gentle, welcoming smile, bustled around the table, setting out plates with homemade snacks, fragrant berry pies, still warm from the oven, pickled cucumbers, slices of cheese, and fresh bread. Her short chestnut hair was carelessly pinned up, strands slipping free to frame her sun-kissed face. A light shawl rested on her shoulders. The evenings in late summer were growing noticeably cooler. "Michael, darling, throw on some more wood, would you?" she called to her husband, who was lounging in a weathered wicker chair, lazily swirling a glass of homemade cherry wine. Michael, a tall man with greying dark hair, laugh lines etched deeply around his kind eyes, grunted good-naturedly and rose. He stretched his broad shoulders before making his way toward the neatly stacked woodpile. The fire sputtered as he tossed on a few more logs, the flames eagerly licking upward, casting longer shadows across the lawn. Their friends were gathered in a semicircle around the fire. Sergei and his wife Marina, an inseparable couple they'd known since their carefree university days. Oleg and Natasha, new residents of their sleepy village, along with their bright-eyed teenage daughter Katya. Adding a special charm to the group was Elena Petrovna, a retired literature teacher who lived next door. Her silver-grey hair was pinned up in a tidy bun, and mischievous sparks danced in her eyes behind her thin-framed glasses. "You know," Elena Petrovna began, adjusting her glasses with a slow, deliberate gesture that immediately commanded attention, "evenings like this always seem to summon old memories and remarkable stories, especially the ones that have their roots right here in our own little village." Katya, her long blonde braid glinting in the firelight, immediately leaned forward, her face full of eager curiosity. "Please tell us. I love stories." Elena Petrovna smiled, taking in the eager faces lit by the fire's glow. "Well then, let me tell you about something that happened about 30 years ago, when I had just moved here. Back then," she explained, "where new houses and paved roads now stood, there had once been a vast apple orchard stretching as far as the eye could see. It belonged to Vasily Stepanovich, a retired agronomist, a man of science and soil, who lived there with his young wife, Vera. Vasily Stepanovich was decades older than Vera, a difference that the villagers often whispered about behind cupped hands. Yet those who truly observed them could see the unmistakable bond that connected the two, a love built not on appearances or convenience, but on deep, unwavering devotion. Every morning, Vasily would walk through the orchard at first light, carefully selecting the ripest apples, polished to a shine, to leave by Vera's bedside. He filled their home with the scent of wildflowers he picked on his strolls, and his every gesture was a silent poem dedicated to her happiness. Vera, with her statuesque beauty, long black hair cascading like a silken river, her sky-blue eyes clear and wide, never once showed anything but genuine affection for her husband. She tended to him as carefully as he tended to his orchard, fussing over his meals, listening to his endless stories about grafting techniques and soil conditions, laughing brightly at his old jokes. Then one cruel autumn, Vasily fell gravely ill. Fevered and weak, he became a mere shadow of his former robust self. Yet Vera never left his side. She brewed him teas from secret blends of herbs, read poetry aloud to him by candlelight, and simply sat there, holding his hand through long restless nights. "You know," Vasily whispered one night, his voice rough with emotion, "I was always afraid you'd regret marrying me, that you'd wish for someone younger, stronger." Vera gently pressed her finger to his lips to silence him. "Foolish one. Love isn't measured in years or strength. It's measured by the way your heart beats when you see a smile, by the peace that fills you when your hand finds another's in the dark." Through the seasons, winter's harsh silence, spring's tentative rebirth, Vasily recovered, and the orchard bloomed more lushly than ever, as if the trees themselves rejoiced. People came not only for the apples, but to catch glimpses of the couple strolling arm in arm under the blossoms, laughing and sharing secrets like love-struck teenagers. Elena Petrovna's voice grew soft as she finished the story, the firelight flickering in her glasses. Marina discreetly wiped a tear from her cheek with the sleeve of her sweater. "What happened to the orchard?" Katya asked after a moment, her voice almost a whisper. Elena sighed. "When Vasily passed, Vera couldn't bear to stay. She sold the land, but not before giving away saplings from the orchard to anyone who asked. She said, 'Love must keep growing.'" She pointed toward her own garden, barely visible in the darkness. "That apple tree by my fence. It grew from one of those saplings." The group sat quietly for a moment, breathing in the weight of the story, before Sergei spoke up, his deep voice cutting gently through the silence. "I have a story too," he said, leaning forward, the firelight dancing across his neatly trimmed beard. "One that happened just last summer." Everyone instinctively leaned closer. Sergei was known as a gifted storyteller, weaving words like threads of a tapestry. He spoke of a terrible storm that had ripped through the village, tearing roofs from houses and felling trees. In the aftermath, repair crews worked day and night. Among them was Andrei, a slim, unassuming young man whose only remarkable feature was the startling clarity of his blue eyes. Andrei first noticed Marina, the neighbor's daughter, when she stepped into the sunlight, a violin case in hand, her copper hair ablaze in the golden light. She played for herself, unaware of her silent audience high above on the rooftop. Her music was not polished or showy. It was raw and tender, tugging at something deep inside. Every day thereafter, Andrei volunteered to work at her house, just to listen. One evening, when a sudden summer rain broke over the village, he hurried down from the half-repaired roof, clumsily offering her his old work jacket to shield her and her precious violin. "You've been listening all along?" she asked, tilting her head, strands of wet hair clinging to her face. Blushing furiously, Andrei nodded. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." Her answering smile was shy, almost secretive. "Then perhaps next time you'll stay and listen properly, without pretending you're fixing something." Thus began their story, one built not on grand gestures, but on silent afternoons spent under apple trees, where music and unspoken feelings mingled like mist. Elena Petrovna adjusted her show. "And if you'll bear with an old woman," she said, "I have one more story, a more recent one, about the hidden kindnesses that change a life forever." She spoke of Nastya, a shy girl who lost her grandmother, her closest soul. Nastya, too timid for the bustling world, took solace in writing letters to the stars, hiding her secret notebook in a hollow tree. One day, she found an unexpected reply, a kind, understanding note from a stranger who called himself simply your secret friend. Fear and hope warred inside her, but she chose hope. She met him by the pond on a Sunday afternoon. Dino was no prince from a fairy tale, messy hair, simple clothes, a mischievous kitten darting between his feet. But he smiled at her like she was the most important person in the world. And to him she was. Through Dima's quiet encouragement, Nastya discovered not just new friends at a local literary club, but the belief that her words mattered. Half a year later, she saw her name printed in a city newspaper beside her first published story. And still, some evenings, they left each other little notes tucked into the hollow tree. No longer messages to nowhere, but to someone who truly listened. The fire was now dying down, reduced to glowing embers. The night wrapped itself around them, soft and vast. "You know," Katya said, hugging her knees, "all these stories. They're about the same thing, aren't they?" Mikhail chuckled, tossing another log onto the fire. "And what's that, wise one?" Katya smiled shyly. "About real love. About finding beauty in the simple things. About seeing with your heart." Anna reached out to squeeze her hand warmly. "You have a poet's soul, Katya." Katya ducked her head, her cheeks flushing pink. I recently met a boy too," she confessed. "He stutters, and everyone makes fun of him. But yesterday, I heard him reading poetry aloud in the library. It was so beautiful, like music made of words." "And what did you do?" Elena Petrovna asked, her voice gentle. "I left him a book," Katya said softly, "with a note inside, asking if he'd like to meet." Silence fell, a good silence, filled with hope and understanding. Above them, the stars spilled across the sky, dazzling and eternal. "Next time," Anna said, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders, "I'll tell you how Mikhail proposed to me during the worst thunderstorm in history." They laughed, the kind of laughter that lingers sweetly even after it fades, and promised they would meet again, with more stories, more memories, and more fires to warm the long drifting nights. Because what mattered most wasn't the size of the orchard, or the fame of the music, or the number of readers. It was the simple, quiet certainty that real love, in all its tender, everyday forms, would always find its way home.